Blackhawks fans, and welcome into the Four Feathers podcast. It's Jonnie and Ron here alongside Ron Luce. Mr. Luce, how you doing tonight? Great to talk some Blackhawks hockey with you.
Jonathan, I am fantastic. Despite a bit of a snoozer for a preseason opener, we are here with victory beers this evening. I am very excited. We'll hashtag crack them to that. But I'm doing well, my friend. I am just, I got to talk some Bears tonight with the Bears on Tap boys. My Cubbies won as they're kind of winding down their season. Oh, but damn it, Johnny, there is something about talking Blackhawks hockey. I am so excited that we get to do this again. It was such a long summer. Now that it's only been a week between shows, it feels much better, Johnny.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. Like we had talked about, just the excitement, right? With the fall air coming in and it feels like hockey season. Obviously, we already know it's football weather, kind of gets there. But, hockey season takes a little bit into that, right? Because not starting until mid-October. But we're approaching that because last time we talked, we were just discussing training camp. This time, we've got some preseason action to discuss, as you had mentioned, a little bit of a snoozer of an opener, but we are here fresh on Wednesday, September 28th, when we are recording this and live. Thanks to everybody who jumps in the comments here. But we are here after a Blackhawks winner over Detroit Sucks. Detroit sucks. Hell yeah. Hey, even preseason, Ron, I love beating those guys. We'll get into all of that, all the details, some observations about who stood out, who looked all right, who didn't, and all of that stuff. But before we do, as I mentioned, we are live here on the OnTap Sportsnet YouTube page. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss this show or any future ones or anything else on the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and give us a follow on social media at Four Feathers Pod and at OnTap Sportsnet, and also like the page on Facebook, OnTap Sportsnet. You can drop your comments in there from there as well. We can feature them in the show. We've got a few of our good friends in here. Matt, what's up? I think I'm going to need a 5-5 sweater, talking about Kevin Korchinski there. And I am Socks, says, dudes, what's up? Love it. Great to have everybody in here in the live show for Four Feathers. Ron, preseason action obviously underway, and I'd be remiss if we didn't start with the young guns, because that is fresh in my mind for tonight, and your name has a little something to do with that. Tell us what that's all about there, and explain it for the just audio listeners too, because we're on a live stream here. I can see you, they can't see you.
Yes. So, in our little taglines, all the more reason we encourage you guys to tune in with us live. And if you can't tune in with us live, you can always find these broadcasts again on YouTube. So go subscribe to that YouTube channel. We actually just crossed 400 subs, Johnny. So that's a little bit of a cool and tough moment for us as well. But I said, I'll have a Korchinski, just like you're sitting at your favorite Southside dive bar here in Chicago, and you start talking in your accents and you say, hey, buddy, I got my meal. I'm a little thirsty, and I could have a Budweiser, I could have a Busch, or I could have a Miller. But son of a bitch, I'll take a Korchinski, because I'll tell you what, as Voodoo XO7 said, that 5-5 sweater in a couple of years might look really good, because that kid is something special. If he's that good offensively, Johnny, like I told you before we started, and he's only 18 now, just imagine what he's like when he develops for a couple of years.
Hell yeah, Ron. I love it. As what we're referring to, guys, that is two of the youngsters that we've been excited about here. Kevin Korchinski, obviously, and then Samuel Savoie were the only two players to play in both games. It was kind of the main group that went out for game one at the United Center, as expected, in front of the home crowd. And then for game two, they basically had everyone else that was not playing in game one was in the game two lineup. But those two, they want to get them some action here. Luke Richardson said they're making that a point of emphasis before those guys return to their respective teams where they're going to play. Korchinski captaining, I believe, out in Seattle in the WHL. So let's talk tonight, Ron, since, like I said, it's fresh in the mind. And that stretch pass, it was the future, man. The Blackhawks even posted a meme about it on Instagram. I was thinking immediately, the Squidward meme, the future, right? That's exactly what came to mind, and that's exactly what they posted, and it was beautiful. It was his own exit and a stretch pass by Korchinski, lifted it up for Reichel, who was just streaking across the neutral zone, went in, cut across the center ice lane, picked up the puck on a stick flawlessly, buried 1 5-hole, and that's what all Blackhawks fans needed to see tonight, Ron.
Absolutely. This is a season with the future in mind, Johnny, and that was just a little teaser. That's the appetizers we like to say over at Cubs on Tap with these young guns that are coming along in the pipeline. And Johnny, I'll raise you another meme or a GIF as well. The Leonardo DiCaprio biting the
Right.
fist
Yeah.
as
That
well comes to mind
Wolf of
there
Wall
too.
Street. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'll tell you what, man, that pass was perfect. I mean, it takes an elite offensive player. I don't care how old you are, how far along you are in your development. Not every defenseman in the NHL makes that pass. So the fact that he's able to do that, we'll take a Korchinski light, my friends, tonight with that. And honestly, I know we're sitting here and we're really enjoying the Korchinski vibes here right now, Johnny. But kudos to Lukas Reichel. He looks like a different player. That
Oh
speed
yeah. I got
was something that I don't think we saw as much last year because of a lack of confidence. So that was really cool to see too tonight.
Yeah, well, while we're on the topic of that, obviously, we talked a bit about Korchinski. And hey, by the way, love our YouTube comment section. A little more Korchinski light, my friends. And then we got we got Matt chiming in, says, we think we need an on-tap Korchinski brew crossover with Goose Island, maybe. Hey, who knows? They're in the team-themed brews. Obviously, the Blackhawks Pale Ale. That's something we'll discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, I think we could get a Korchinski.
Can we?
Wait, does he have to be of legal drinking?
I was just going to ask that. Do we have to wait 3 years for that to work? I mean, we can draw up all the paperwork now with him and just make sure it's ready to roll.
We make it and enjoy it and then tease him with it. And then this is what you're working for. And, you know, that's I think that's a good string along. It's like the guy on the fishing pole and what commercials they you got to be a little quicker than that. You got to be a little older than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, and maybe, who knows? It might work out perfectly. He might turn 21. He might be ready for his debut. And then the on-tap crew can crack a cold one with him with his own Korchinski brew when he makes his NHL debut, Jonathan. So who knows, man?
All right.
Who knows?
I love that. That's, you know, kind of the initial Korchinski one. But another guy you mentioned there, the guy who scored the goal on that, obviously the Korchinski pass was really nice, but Lukas Reichel with a nice finish there. You talked about him looking stronger, more confident, right? I think, you know, the offseason of training and obviously taking what he learned from that kind of short, 11, 12 game sample size that he had at the NHL level last year has helped him over the summer. And I noticed it, Ron. I know that's going to be sexy. That's the highlight reel. That's the one that, you know, the Blackhawks posted. That's the one that NHL posted. That's what's getting all the attention. I understand it. What I really liked from Lukas Reichel most tonight was in the third period, I believe. It was it actually might have been the second period. Towards the end of the second period, Reichel definitely looked like he improved in his own zone. His back checking was improved, and he broke up a couple of plays. Just A, good awareness on them, and then B, quick stick work to go and lift the stick, be able to dig the puck out, and he was able to cancel a play before the Red Wings were able to get it into the slot. That is what we call protecting the house here at Four Feathers, Ron.
Yes, and Johnny, as anybody that knows, we love protecting the house here. And yeah, I think that too just speaks such big volumes into the strides he has taken as a player in terms of that development, right? You said that 12-game stint he had the NHL last season, and, you know, kind of taking those mental notes of what he needs to work on going into the future. But Johnny, as well, it makes me feel like that Reichel is confident in understanding Luke Richardson's system as well, because as Luke Richardson said, they want to play kind of that box model with the guy at the top. That way it's simple, but it can lead to that quick offense, right? And that's kind of what we saw on the goal tonight, right? It really was that quick offense.
And it's canceling plays, Ron. I think that that's what I really want to drive home from Luke Richardson's sort of initial implementation of the system. And it's canceling plays because so many times we saw last year, other teams were able to cycle the puck kind of at will. And it looked like a mess. The Blackhawks were a mess in their own zone, right? But when you go and simplify it, the players have responded to it and said that it's easy to understand, straightforward concept, stuff like that. But then once again, then you're generating offense the other way, which is the goal of Luke Richardson's defense, right? Play fast, hard, have, you know, guys attacking the puck, guys canceling plays, and then leading the other way. So that was just one observation I had from Lukas Reichel. Ron, there's a whole lot more than just those two, and I'm sure these guys will come up at later points. But we saw the main group in Tuesday night's game. I will say, just from this, that was a little bit of, you know, a split. They had the kind of what the goaltending tandem will look like. So they did the split on half the game there. So you had Mrazek, Stalock, first one there. But man, how about the mainstays? I know we talked a lot about the young guns, but holy shit, Patrick Kane, looks like he's already in midseason form with some of the passes he was dishing. I know nothing was able to go in for them. The only goal came from Cole Gutman. However, Kaner was zipping that thing all around the ice, and it's great to see.
Yeah, and Johnny, I saw a couple of quotes from early in training camp. I believe it was the first day that they got to actually speak with the media. And Kane kind of brought up some of those lingering injuries that he's had over the last 2 seasons and how last year he was kind of struggling with it and what have you. And he said he feels better coming into camp this year, Johnny. If that's the case, if he's feeling better in this camp than he did last year, may I remind everybody he had a cool, calm, collective 92 points last season on a not so good Blackhawks team? Like, if that's how good he's feeling already, I don't care what Patrick Kane's age is. It doesn't matter at this point because the style of hockey he plays is going to age well. He doesn't play a lot of contact. He is a finesse skill player who is just elite at what he does. I'm telling you, Johnny, and I talked about this a little bit in my write-up when they announced the lines for Tuesday night's game.
Right.
Him playing with guys like Domi and Athanasiou, who have shown offensive upside of their careers. Domi has had a career 72-point season in Montreal with Richardson on the coaching staff. And then Andreas Athanasiou is a 30-goal scorer in his career. He just has not been able to stay healthy. Maybe these two guys tap into that effort of playing with a guy like Patrick Kane this season.
Yeah, Kaner's just different, as Matt says in the comments here, and that's absolutely true. We've all known that for a while here in Chicago. Ron, a byproduct of this, too, is I think we touched on it briefly on our last episode just last week, but that could help really up that trade value for guys like Domi and Athanasiou, obviously. Absolutely. On the short-term deals. You're talking about trade chips building for the future. That's what this whole rebuild's all about. That's something that can do. But while they're here, man, that's going to be a fun line to watch because Athanasiou is fast as all hell, and Max Domi, we all know he's an agitator. He stirs shit up, right? That's what he does. That's all part of his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, despite being an agitator, he's still a skilled player. I mean, he's never been a huge goal scorer. He's definitely more of a playmaker. And maybe that gets Kaner some more goals this year, too. That'd be cool. I mean, Kaner had a really heavy assist year from that point total last season. Maybe we get a
scoring, yeah.
Yeah, maybe Kaner takes on a little more of that role. Maybe Kaner is a 30 to 35 guy this year, or even maybe a little higher than that. If Domi's going to set him up a little bit too, especially early on in the season, prior to, aforementioned trade deadline that we've discussed. But again, it feels like that line too, Johnny, their skills all kind of complement each other, right? Kane is the elite, playmaker, can do everything, can thrive with different kind of teammates. Athanasiou can really open up the ice, I feel like, for both Domi and Kane because of that speed. And then you get Domi that is just kind of that little bit of everything that ties in the middle there and can really complement both of those other players and their strengths, Johnny. So I know it's early. I know it's one game of those three guys playing together. Would not at all be mad to see Luke Richardson trot those guys out on October 12th against Colorado Avalanche and just say, hey, go play hockey and we'll see what you guys are doing after 5 games and we'll reevaluate at that point. Because there is something there, Johnny. I agree with you. Like, that could be a line that, if nothing else, is exciting as hell to watch this season because of how well their skills complement each other.
Yeah, we said it all there, Ron. I wanted to kind of shift. We talked about a little bit up front. I want to shift a little bit to the back end and discuss, some of the guys back here. Hey, Caleb Jones, we had talked about him. And remember last week, Tony had said, the Blackhawks are going to get pucks on net. And I said, well, if Mr. Caleb Jones is in the lineup, they absolutely will. And guess what? He's tied for the team lead in that Tuesday night game in shots with 5. I love how active he is. And I think some guys that when I was looking at the stat sheet too, and not that shots on goal mean everything, because sometimes you can just flip one in from center ice and it can go on net, whatever. However, I was looking at it and it seemed like all newcomers or fairly new guys, like Caleb Jones, just one season in here, were the guys really padding those shots. So I like that kind of mentality that's being brought in here. And then I'd like to see some of the mainstays then go and jump in on that. But what I really wanted to get to on the back end was Vlasic being paired with Seth Jones. Those two seem to have a bit of chemistry. They like to put them together. They did it at the end of last season. They're doing it at the start of camp. They're doing it at the start of preseason here. Is Alex Vlasic a lock to make the opening night roster? Based on this, I'm just going to say yes right now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Johnny. It really is kind of starting to feel that way. He's getting the looks. He's playing with your top guy, right? Seth Jones is the big $9.5 million man. He's got an A this season. I don't mean to jump the gun on the rundown, but he is a guy that is going to be. The tweet from Four Feathers account. I know that was one Johnny Nani's doing, and that's okay. But when talking about Seth Jones wearing an A, and he's like, yeah, because he's here for the next half century, but it's true, right? He is here to be that guy. He's here to be the workhorse on the blue line. If you're a young guy getting paired with him out the gate when guys like Murphy and his own brother are playing in the game, I would say you're probably a lock to make the roster, John.
Yeah, so I just want to go and touch on this really quick because it is honestly it's a pretty cool story because he's a local kid and kind of a funny thing at I believe it was 2019 Blackhawks development camp. I actually sat next to the Vlasics, very nice family, very nice people. But they're local. He's a local product here. Obviously went to school out in Boston, but he's basically doing this because he came right from college, right from Boston U to the Blackhawks last year. They already burned first year of his entry level. So I think they're just going to go and throw him right into the fire. However, I will caution, and I know it's not the same sport, but my White Sox put Andrew Vaughn up right away. And that worked out okay. I know it was a little weird with the COVID stuff, and he is a good hitter on that front. However, you'd have to wonder a little bit sometimes what some of these guys would be like with a little bit more seasoning, right? So I just want to caution that, and I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility if you start to see Mr. Vlasic struggle out there for a little stint in Rockford. So I did just want to chime that in. I know we've been all positive so far, but I guess this can transition into a little bit of the negatives. Because we'll swing back up on this, Ron. But let's talk. The biggest kind of gripe from this was a penalty kill going 0 for 3 in Tuesday night's game. Power play did as well. They did not convert on their 3 chances. And this comes after Luke Richardson had talked about his, kind of new approach to penalty killing and how they're going to emphasize it. And the early returns were not great, Bob.
Not great at all. And you know what? That'll win you lose your hockey games, Johnny. And then, they played a really good overall game. Like if we're zooming out really quick to zoom back in, 50 minutes of that game, they were in it. They were arguably the better team, truthfully. They looked really good. Zooming back in, though, when you are getting that beat up on special teams on both sides of the house, it is not going to go well for you. It does not matter how well you play at 5-on-5. It really is just like, in another sport that I personally love, Johnny, and that is football. You can't get beat up on special teams. You see special teams win and lose teams games all the time, right? Field goals, punts, kick returns, punt returns. It's a part of the game that people kind of forget about sometimes, but at the same time, it can be just as critical. Hockey is very similar in that essence. You have to protect the house on the PK, and then you gotta go to work on the power play, and you gotta take advantage of other teams' mistakes. That's really what it is. So seeing offers on both sides, not great.
Yeah, right. And, reminding it was the first preseason game. However, like I said, they were just big points of emphasis, right, all throughout camp. Luke Richardson made a point to talk about that and really highlight some of the areas that they were working on. I will say, upswing, we did see a little bit better on both ends of that in game 2. But I did have a couple last comments from game 1. This is interesting. Obviously, game 1 at the United Center on Tuesday night. And Ron, wait, is this Ron Luce or is this Griffin Luce? Because there was a Griffin Luce to score a goal for the St. Louis Blues. Ron, are you a double agent? Are you a double agent that the St. Louis Blues have planted in the Four Feathers podcast?
I believe I'm not a double agent. I think he's my doppelganger from another universe that somehow got drafted to the St. Louis Blues. It's ironic, Johnny, because the preseason game last season that you were so gracious to let me use your tickets for was also against the Blues, and Ron/Griffin Luce got into a fight, and everybody was telling me, hey, why are you punching Blackhawks, Ron? That's not like you. I'll tell you what, there's something about the Blues in the preseason that brings out the best in the Luce name line. I don't know if we're related at all, but it was quite funny to see when it was very shorthanded and everybody was like, oh, Luce scores, and everybody was like, wait, Ron, what's happening here? So I wish I was that good at hockey, Johnny.
Yeah. The thing is, Ron, I will say this is a little bit of a tinfoil hat time that I had coming into this show. And if you do listen to the Sox version of our show, Sox on Tap here at On Tap Sportsnet, we like our tinfoil hat time there. But I think you calling it out and getting out ahead of it, because I was going to press you on it no matter what, but I think you getting ahead of it last night, it made me feel a little bit better. So I think we can move forward with Ron Luce in this role. I think I feel pretty comfortable about solving that mystery. All right, Ron, last takeaway from the first game before we jump back into what happened here just before we jumped on the show. 300 level closed off at the United Center. Very interesting. Attendance was only, I assumed attendance wasn't going to be great. It's a weeknight. It's, preseason. It's a rebuilding season, but just over 10K. It was 10,317 attendance. 300 level is closed off. I just got to start off and say that I miss my beer vendor. It's been since like early April that I got to see my beer vendor. Who's always outside section 324. Shout out Anthony. He's a great guy. He always hooks it up. He always knows my order when I'm coming up. So the beers are ready. I don't miss any action at all. That's what I like about the 300 level and going to those corner bars. And I also like my bird's eye view. But obviously they got to get the fans down in there and make it look like, so it's on TV. It looks like there's actually a crowd there. Just interesting. I think it's a good strategy though, overall for them, if they're not going to draw the crowds like that. A, you basically upgrade fans, so to say, and then B, you get those aesthetics there. Thoughts on them not opening 300 level yet?
Yeah, I think, Johnny, to your point, right? I think especially for preseason games, I think it's a good move, right? Let people sit close. This is the time to let them feel something different, experience a game differently. Because, like you said, a lot of people do have season tickets in the 300 level. And your beer guy, Anthony, is a legend. I have attended enough games with you to know as soon as we walk out and he sees us, there are, boom, 2 beers ready to roll. You get up there, it's a quick swipe, and we're back at the seats before anything meaningful happens. And, there is something about the 300 level, and I agree with you about that bird's eye view. It really is, especially when you're trying to analyze the game and see things develop and enjoy what hockey is from that perspective. I think it's an okay move. I think for preseason game number 1, it's a Tuesday night. If it was a weekend and they're doing that, I'm a little more concerned, Johnny.
Right. I'm interested to see how we're going to get to it later, but I'm interested to see what's going to happen Saturday. I'll be there, so I'll be on site to report. But continue.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think for sake of the situation, it's okay and it works. And hey, cool, you paid for a 300 level seat and you got a 100 level seat. Good for you. But definitely intrigued to see what happens Saturday, because that's going to be a different vibe. And if remind me if I'm wrong, Johnny, it is against the Detroit Sucks Red Wings again on Saturday. So you would hope it's a little bit of a better crowd on a Saturday night on October 1st.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll get to that when we talk about the upcoming schedule here. But I will be on site, so you check the Four Feathers Pod Twitter and Instagram accounts. I'll do some on-site reporting, see what the deal is, if 300 is closed off or if it's not. Whatever's going on there. A little Oktoberfest before the game. All right, Ron, let's move through this because one more preseason game to talk about. I know we had to go and slobber over Korchinski and Reichel because that was all great, but a few other things from this second game. Obviously a win. Hey, a win's a win. I tweeted out from Four Feathers. Victory beer posts are back from there. I know it's preseason, but you got to warm up the liver too. So I'm enjoying some victory beers here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Preseason, get that liver warmed up for the season, just like these guys are getting into the swing of hockey. And everybody that is involved with the hockey game, hockey ops, all of that getting going here. As we're talking about game 2, though, they did not split the net in this one. Soderblom got it all, and it was cool. He's playing up against his brother there in this one. But one thing that I just saw, we're going to talk about captains overall in a little bit, but obviously not the main group out there. Ron, 2 of our favorite guys here, Sam Lafferty, Riley Stillman, wearing the A's on their sweaters. What do you think about that?
I love that, Johnny. I think it just shows that those guys are respected in their roles in the organization, right? Obviously, Sam Lafferty has captured the hearts of. If you are a perfect bottom 6 hockey player, Johnny Nani will forever be the president of your fan club, as we saw with Ryan Carpenter, and now we are starting to see with Mr. Lafferty. But Johnny, that goes to show, right, that these guys are respected. Lafferty earned a new contract in the organization, as did Stillman. Obviously was still under the Bowman regime when he signed it. But Davidson hasn't tried to trade him yet. So maybe, just maybe, Davidson was one of those guys advocating for a guy like Stillman in that trade. Just good to see those guys getting recognized again, a much younger group. But, obviously those two being at the forefront wearing A's. Not only cool and tough, Johnny, but also just shows that their roles are respected within this organization. They might
Right.
not be the stars,
Yeah.
but they know their place and the organization appreciates them for knowing said place.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight that. I think you did a good job of that, Ron. Let's get a little bit of their play on the ice too, because both were involved. Lafferty had himself a goal and an assist. He had the empty netter to kind of cap this thing, and then an assist on the very first goal that Dylan Sakura scored early in this game. Stillman getting a little bit chippy as well. I saw him in a little bit of a shoving match. Both of these guys did take penalties tonight. But man, Ron, I don't know if you saw it or if you were busy with the Bears show. However, Riley Stillman in the third period, excellent PK work. If the Red Wings were going to get back into this game, it was kind of a turning point, right? It was a late penalty the Blackhawks took, and Riley Stillman's going up against Arvid Soderblom's brother, who's like 10 feet tall. He's 6'8", really. So like 7 feet on skates, right? He's going up against him in front of the net. He's battling him for position, doing a good job. And then he canceled kind of a net front chance by, just using the body to shield him out and then using his stick to get his stick out of there. And that's what you like to see from a guy like Riley Stillman, and obviously showing a little bit of that tenacity. And I know you're a big Riley Stillman fan, so I don't know if you got to see any of that at all, but those are kind of my big two takeaways from both of those guys tonight.
Yeah, didn't get to see as much as I would have liked to, Johnny. I'm definitely going to have to hucker down and get to see more of this before the season starts. But I am right there, as you said. I'm a really big fan of Riley Stillman. And again, constantly reminding people last season that he's only 24 years old. I don't even know if he's turned 25. He might have just turned 25 recently. Still a super young defenseman in the NHL, does not have a ton of time under his belt. And in that kind of moment, Johnny, what that tells me is he is developing into a more complete defenseman of what they think he can become. And I don't think he'll ever become the elite offensive defenseman, and that's okay. But if he can be a very good 5, 6, maybe even a 4 at times, depending on where they are in this rebuild, Johnny, and can kind of help grow with some of these young guys, I think he's well worth what they ended up giving up to get those guys, right? If that comes down to the end of the day that 5 major pieces were moved in that trade, and Riley Stillman's the last guy standing for the Hawks, that'll make me feel good. He showed it last season. He can step up when you need him to in cases of injuries and COVID and all of that we saw go through the Hawks blue line. Good to see him tonight getting the job done where he's going to be needed, which is going to be on the PK, especially with Jake McCabe sidelined to start the season.
Right. Very good point there, Ron. I was also going to highlight that because you might be asking yourself right now, if you're listening to this, I turned into listening to hear about the young guys and all that. We'll get to a little bit more of them in a little bit. Guess what? These guys are still like 18 and 19 years old. They're going back to their junior teams. They're going back to their college teams. A lot of these guys. Kevin Korchinski is not going to be here for a while. He's going to go and play out a full season in the WHL. Maybe you see him at the very end of the year. Until then, it's going to be, like you'd said, the Riley Stillmans, especially filling in for a guy like Jake McCabe. Guess what? Jack Johnson's going to be here and whatever. So I know we're probably just going to flip Jack Johnson at the deadline, but a guy who could be here longer, Riley Stillman. That's why we're talking about him. So, all right, let's go and talk about one of those young guys, though, Ron. And that it was one we got a comment on here. Samuel Savoie. He played in both games just like Kevin Korchinski did. And, you've heard on the Detroit broadcast, I heard a little bit of the, models his game after Brad Marchand. We've heard some Andrew Shaw comps, obviously, within the Blackhawks organization. So this guy was a little bit all over. He did throw the body around, registered some hits in both games. I believe Monday had 5 in the opener and 3 tonight. He did take a penalty in the opener as well. But thoughts on him? 3rd round pick, 2022. I do like the energy that he brings to the team.
Yeah, and Johnny, he fits the identity that we talked about after the draft, right? That feels like Kyle Davidson is building this team, and that's just a team that's hard to play against, and that's going to be nasty, and is going to come balls to the walls energy every single night. And I don't know about you, Johnny. I think we've well established this over the our 4th season now here at the Four Feathers Pod. Balls to the walls energy is very cool and very tough, and we're big fans of that. And I'm telling you what, I love hearing what I heard. So I was able to listen. I caught most of last night's game actually on the radio, and hearing John Weideman describe Savoie and what he was doing on the ice was awesome because he's running. He's not afraid to go put guys in the boards. And then Braden Shen thinks he's going to mess with the young guy and get him to retaliate and do some dumb penalty. No, no, no. Not you, my friend. Instead, Blues goal was waved off because Savoie stick was grabbed by Shen on the bench,
Right.
and it led to a Hawks power play. He almost feels a little mature beyond his years, understanding how to play the game the way he wants to play it. And a lot of 18-year-olds, Johnny, is in any game and in anything, right? Youngster like that, just barely a legal adult. It is sometimes they're a little more kind of timid to establish themselves and play the way they want to play. And, they're feeling out the energy. Savoie has had no problem just playing his game. Like he comes out and admits it. He's like, I like to be a tough son of a bitch that likes to fuck with people and get under people's skin. He's like, that's my game. That's what I do. That level of self-awareness, Johnny, is going to get him into the NHL sooner than later. And if that's the case, what a third-round pick by Davidson and company. Because even if he is a bottom six forward, he's got some. I think he's got some offensive prowess. There's a reason they tried him on the second power play unit in that game against St. Louis, as well as that net front presence. If he can become a solid power forward that is an agitator and just goes balls to the walls every single game, he's going to have a place on this Hawks roster in the future.
Yeah, and I will add that I like that he wears number 67 because I love Michael Frolik when he was here. So that was
a good
nice
number.
Little,
it's a good number.
But it's funny because when you go and see these, obviously, preseason numbers can change and they got to, just field what they can with these guys there. And obviously that might not be their NHL number. It's funny to just watch them out there wearing those and you just get flashbacks, right, of certain guys that wore those numbers previously. So a couple of other points that I just had from this game. Hey, Arvid Soderblom, I mentioned he got the full game. He made 31 of 33, stopped 31 of 33 shots that he saw, multiple coming from his brother, his monster brother there. And Ron, this is something that I think you and I have talked about, and you and I were at a game last year where Soderblom obviously was kind of thrown into the fire due to COVID injuries, a lot of stuff going on there. And he looked really, really bad, but obviously finished up better in Rockford at that level. It was good to see him get the full game in net because I don't think Jackson Stauber is in plans at the pro level at any point. However, anyone gets injured on the goalie front, being Mrazek, Stalock, Soderblom is likely your next man ready there. So I liked this game tonight. I don't know if you caught much of that or what he was doing in the net.
No, but I do like, Johnny, that, you and I talked about it, and I think a lot of people, even myself, I'm gonna throw myself in the fire here as one that needs to remind myself how young Soderblom still is and how much growth. Goalie is a hard position. Goalie and defenseman development takes a lot longer than forward development does, and I think seeing Soderblom do what he did tonight against, a solid Detroit team, right? We heard the David Perrons in the lineup and some of their big guns.
Larkin was in, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of those guys on opening night for the Red Wings as well. For him to step up the way he did and continue to do what he does, it gives me a little bit of confidence, Johnny, to say this, that I think when the time comes for the future of this organization at goalie, because let's just call a spade a spade. I don't think Mrazek or Stalock is the future at goalie. But
bold claim, Ron.
I know, really bold claim. I'm full of hot takes tonight, Johnny. But I think we can confidently sit here and say that Soderblom is going to actually legitimately compete with a guy like Drew Commesso, who I think the organization holds very high for that future goaltending spot. Obviously, guys can come along in the future that obviously adds a wrinkle to things. But clearly there is something there that they like with him. He absolutely was thrown in the fire in that Columbus game last season that you and I both attended, Johnny. To see him do what he did tonight gives me confidence. If he goes down to Rockford this year and has a monster season in the AHL, all of a sudden now I look at next season as him maybe getting a chance to be kind of, I'm not going to put, expectations to be too high, just in terms of the role that he would play, like what Corey Crawford was in 2011. Hey, you're not here necessarily to have to backstop us to games, but be good enough to keep us in games. And I think he could really be that role for this team next year if he continues to show what he did tonight.
Right. Yeah, good take on that, Ron. I like that. Another player that I did just want to touch on briefly before we get to some overall numbers was Jujhar Khaira, because he did score a goal, nice greasy one on the power play. Power plays
Love
did
it.
area that I was going to get to here in a minute, but that was good to see. And also, I think Ron, the biggest thing is just seeing him healthy back. I know he did return after that concussion, but then shortly after had to have back surgery. So I know it's a guy, not a sexy name on this roster. He's a depth guy. He's a lower six forward, right? I get all that. But once again, Blackhawks still need to field a team this year. And he's going to be one of the guys that's in there. And I do think that he can offer a little bit to maybe some of those other young wingers that are going to try and make the roster and earn spots, and they will have to do so in a bottom six role. I think Khaira's experience, even though, he's, like I said, no headliner name by any means, but it was good to see him back in action. I believe he also had an assist tonight, and that was, on the very first one. He also teamed up with Lafferty for the assist on Sakura's goal. So jamming in front of the net too. He's a big body. So you might get some greasy goals out of him out in front of the cage.
Absolutely. And Johnny, I think if I remember correctly, you and I maybe you weren't there. I don't recall. I was there. I think for two of Juju Kaira's first goals of the season last year. Before, and I was at the game when he got knocked out cold, unfortunately, and that was ultimately a reason why we didn't see him. And I think a lot of people have written him off is just because he was hurt almost all of
Right.
last season. He only really got to play about a half a season of hockey before he
Yeah.
legitimately was knocked out
And,
cold for the season.
and it was the beginning, so it wasn't the half that you remember most freshly.
Right, exactly. So I think it's again, like you said, they're going to still need to field the team, and especially if you move pieces like Domi and Johnson and Athanasiou at the deadline, you're going to need some of these veteran guys who early in the season will be bottom six guys to move up and play potentially bigger roles in the organization as the season moves on. I think Khaira presents a guy that can do that. He's on the second year of his 2-year deal that he signed, not this past offseason, but the one before that. And again, like you said, brings experience, knows how to go to the dirty areas. He's a big body. If he plays his game, he's going to be well worth a spot in the bottom six because, again, an effective bottom six player because of his size, his willingness to go to the net and the dirty areas and do the things that other guys don't want to do. And good to see him get rewarded tonight with a goal and assist as well.
Yep. Like I said, I'm happy he's healthy and he's good back from that back surgery, and obviously the concussion issues too, because that was some scary shit last
Yeah.
season. So that wraps it up on Jujhar Khaira. I want to talk overall, Ron. Preseason is obviously all about getting looks at some of these young guys before they return to their respective clubs. Obviously, that's kind of like a top priority on there. However, another one then is building, learning, right, as a team, as an organization, especially important this year when you're implementing new systems and all of that. I talked about the bad numbers in game 1, 0 for 3 on both PK and the PP. That flipped a little bit tonight. They went 1 for 4 on the PP with that aforementioned Jujhar Khaira goal, and then they went 3 for 3 on the PK, so they cleaned that up. I know it was not the same exact group out there. No, it was not the same team you were playing. I know, don't get me wrong, the Blues had a great power play last year, and it was the first preseason game, all of that in the first one. However, going and seeing that, because Luke Richardson was still the guy behind the bench regardless, so he was the one giving the orders and how we want to do this, how we want to attack this, and there was a little bit of threat from that Detroit, like I said, that Soderblom guy, Elmer Soderblom, Arvid's brother, plays for Detroit, and he is massive. If you saw him out there, that's an absolute menace to deal with out in front of the net, and I thought the Hawks did a fairly good job of shutting down chances tonight on the PK. So Ron, seeing that improvement is a big W in my book for Luke Richardson right now.
Absolutely. And just to quickly add, Johnny, and remind people that, again, we just talked about it. Detroit had a lot of their big guns in the lineup tonight. This wasn't, minor leaguers versus minor leaguers. It was a Hawks B unit, quote unquote, for the preseason against some of the A unit for the Detroit Red Wings, right? David Perron, Dylan Larkin, guys that are making a lot of money to be big time contributors up there in Detroit this season. Good to see the Hawks clean things up. And again, further shows that Luke Richardson's system is not only understandable for the guys, whether they're, going back to the juniors, going to be in the AHL or going to be on the NHL roster this season, but they are also buying into it. They are playing to the strength of the system. And when it works, we're clearly seeing it. It works 3-3 on the PK tonight is cool and tough.
Absolutely, Ron. That's about all I've got from these first 2 preseason games. It was nice to finally have some action to break down with you, not just training camp, watching videos on Twitter of line rushes and all that. So we do get some action. We'll have some more of that too coming up. We'll get to that in a second. But a little bit of news before we jump into what's on tap next. The captains are set, Ron, and there's kind of a question. Obviously, we know Jonathan Toews will continue as captain. Patrick Kane is wearing an A. However, we didn't see Connor Murphy with an A on when he played with the main group on Tuesday night, and everyone kind of wondered, oh, did Seth take it? And that's where we were having the kind of conversation. Luke Richardson clarified it. It's going to be split like it was last year. Murphy on the road, Seth Jones at home. I think this is just as expected, especially after DeBrincat got shipped out over the summer. Any thoughts on leadership group here finalized for 2022-23?
Yeah, I think it's the right leadership group. I mean, at the end of the day, Jones made the most sense to step into that role when DeBrincat obviously left. You and I talked at nauseum as DeBrincat is a potential guy to be a next captain on this team. So obviously he was very much a leader. No, I think it's the rightful place that Jones needs to step up and take on that captaincy. He did, I believe wore an A in his time in Columbus. So he is a guy that is a good locker room presence. Love seeing Connor Murphy still get the love and respect as being the guy to wear the A on the road. And let's just call it how it is, Johnny. Kane wearing an A and Johnny wearing the C is going to happen. As long as they're in Hawk sweaters, those two are going to be captains, especially at this point in their careers. Obviously, 10 years ago, that was a little different when it came to guys like Kaner. But nonetheless, I think it's a good captaincy group. And I think for where this team is right now, where it's a lot of youth and a lot of guys that are here just on the temporary, these are probably the 4 most solidified guys that should be in the leadership group for this team.
Right. So I got not too much further on that. It was kind of, I think, Seth Jones embracing what's actually going on here. Obviously, also he came over first year, so it's a little bit, do you want to give it to him, a guy who has been here that long? And that's why Luke Richardson, I thought it was funny too. He even mentioned that, it's a little bit harder to get the refs' attention on the road. So that's why Murphy, a guy who's been around longer, will get it there. And then Seth Jones at home. So it makes sense to me. I don't have any qualms with it. That's about as expected, as I mentioned. Last bit of news here: Colton Dock, Paul Ludwinski, both in concussion protocol. They did return to the ice for practice today, non-contact capacity. That wraps it up for news here on this round. Let's take a look at what's on tap next. And it'll be Saturday night at the UC. I'll be in attendance. Are you going to be there? Blackhawks Wings, Detroit Sucks.
It doesn't look like I will be there, unfortunately, at the moment, Johnny. Obviously, that can change between now and Saturday, and if it does, you will definitely be one of the first to know. But I'm excited for you, my friend. That'll be a good one. And again, it's more Detroit Sucks, but this time it's at home, and we'll probably see more of that main group as well because that's how they love to do it in the preseason. The main guys get to play at home and not have to travel, and all the youngsters get to go on the road and go play somewhere else.
So. Yeah, I think it's funny they fly on the day of the game too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just to make it even worse. All the more reason to credit them for getting the win tonight, right?
Yeah,
literally, you get off an airplane, walk into Detroit, and get a W. That's fantastic to see. But yeah, I mean, you got Detroit, and then not to jump the gun here, but Sunday they're back home again, and another time a Central Division opponent.
It's
in the form of the Wild.
That's a Milwaukee game, Ron. So
that's right.
I did have a take on that. Just for that Saturday night game, I will be out there. I believe our guy Tony on tap will be out there as well. So once again, make sure you follow at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We'll bring you some content from the UC. We'll let you know what the situation is at 300 level. If it's closed off, I don't know if they're expecting a bigger crowd on the weekend or whatnot, or if they're just going to move everybody down and usher them down in to the 100 level like they did on Tuesday. But we'll let you know. We'll drink some beers at the Oktoberfest in the atrium, have a good time, make some content out of it. So once again, at Four Feathers Pod, Twitter and Instagram. As for Sunday, Ron, that's the home away from home series, as they're dubbing it, up at Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee against the Minnesota Wild. And Ron, I thought I saw this today. They released some merchandise. The Blackhawks shop did. And it's cool. I get it. They have a logo that says home away from home and kind of says Milwaukee on it. But then they had one that's the outline of the state of Wisconsin. And then it is the Indian head in the middle of it. And it's interesting to me because it looks like a bad like edit, like it when you first like think about it, but then it's like, okay, like I'm sure they have the home away from home logo on the back or whatever. But the first thing I thought of was suck it, Milwaukee Admirals, and that is also the Nashville Predators, minor league team that plays in Milwaukee. So suck it. It's a Blackhawks hockey town there. I love that.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, Johnny, especially because maybe not so much for you as a White Sox fan, right? You don't have to deal with the terrible state of Wisconsin, but as a Cubs and Bears fan, the state of Wisconsin just finds a way to piss me off on a regular basis. So to know that the Blackhawks have walked into their state, kind of disrespectfully spit on the landscape and told them that an Illinois team owns you, that I can get behind and kind of appreciate. I'm not going to lie.
And you know what? Like when they first announced the home away from home series, I like thought it was interesting because on one level it makes sense in terms of how short the distance is between Milwaukee and Wisconsin, right? Especially if you're just taking the quick drive up, right? It makes sense that okay, yeah, Chicago is kind of closer or whatnot. When I think about the personnel, the people of Wisconsin, right? Don't they seem more inclined to be like Wild fans?
You would think. Right? Because right, Wisconsin is it's the great North, and everybody in Minnesota is the great state of hockey and everything like that. You would think there would be a lot more Wild fans up in the state of Wisconsin, but again, Johnny, Minnesota is, it's a state with a lot of lakes, but unfortunately, they don't have any cups to support all that water.
Ooh.
And unfortunately for the Minnesota Wild, Chicago's got enough cups over the last couple of years to dominate the state of cheese and beer. And as a Crack'em podcast here at Four Feathers, it only feels appropriate that we take over the state that claims beer and cheese as their favorite things.
Yeah, I love it. So that's what's coming up next. Obviously, the home game, actual home game at the UC Saturday night, 7:30 puck drop against Detroit Sucks, and then it would be 6:30, I believe, from Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee on Sunday evening. So that about wraps it up here at Four Feathers. Ron, before we get to some housekeeping, hit me with a final thought for this episode before we get out of here.
I have two quick final thoughts, Johnny, and we'll keep them fast, as Matt said here earlier in the comments. I agree with this. I think you do need a Lafferty a sweater. I think that is
Preseason special. Hell yeah.
It's incredibly important. But just a very quick one here early. I'm gonna be that guy. We're gonna call it out. As Tony said way early in the show, he says victory beers taste better over here. He says after White Sox lost, Cubs win. So I don't know how that feels tonight. But I agree with this one. Happy early birthday, Jonathan Nani. We're wishing it to you tonight. Obviously, Thursday is your official birthday. Saturday is your birthday celebration. So just wanted to say hashtag Crack'em and an early happy birthday to you on the microphone, my friend. From myself, from all of us here at On Tap, and all the great listeners of Four Feathers podcast. But that is my final thought, my friend. Happy birthday to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I'm glad you got to celebrate a little early with the Blackhawks win tonight. That was exciting to see. I kind of spelled out all my takes, but I think it's important. And these are preseason games. I know the result doesn't matter when I go and look at these. But what I said at the end there when I talked about just improvement in that one area or just two areas when talking about power play, penalty kill, it's important that these guys grow under Luke Richardson because he's a first-year head coach. He's growing himself. So I think preseason this year, even though it doesn't seem like it because it's a rebuilding season, it's okay. How many games can we lose to get Connor Bedard, right? That can be the goal. Don't lose sight of how important it is to grow this thing, because what good is it if Connor Bedard comes into an absolute train wreck still, right? And we know that that's kind of been the MO for the Blackhawks and what's plagued them in their downfall, not having structure in the defensive zone, not having a system guys can understand, not having a coach they respect. So it's big for Luke Richardson. I think it's big for the young guys on this team, and it's just fun to go and see guys like Korchinski, Reichel, Samuel Savoie out there going around, slinging the puck around and throwing the body around in Savoie's case. So it's been fun. I'm glad Blackhawks hockey's back, Ron, and it's great to be back on the mic with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. It's always a great day, Johnny, when we're here talking Blackhawks hockey at Four Feathers podcast.
Yep, absolutely. And you can go and find us on tapsportsnet.com for all of our written content. Get all your Blackhawks news updates there. Go and give the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button on there so you don't miss a show. We'll be doing plenty of these, some Hawks happy hour stuff all throughout the season. We'll definitely get back on here at least one more time before regular season kicks off. So you don't want to miss it. On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Hell, on Twitter there, and then at Four Feathers Pod on Twitter and Instagram as well as where you can find us. So, Ron, glad we got to drink some victory beers, talk about a Blackhawks winner. And until next time, let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.